When it comes to politics, we oftentimes can be distracted by federal conversations that are more theatrical than well-intentioned. When I look at Colorado and how the politics of Colorado are set up, for me, someone who has been here in Colorado Springs for 2 years, seeing the political mixture here where there are really deeply entrenched conservatives and there are very open liberals and everything in between. When the president announces that the Space Command is being moved from Colorado to Alabama, that means that the Space Command is being moved out of Colorado Springs to Alabama. And that is a major impact to the local economy.
I couldn't agree more.
So,
this is the second time he's proposed this, as you know. And the first time, I think there was more gumption behind it because, presidents in their first term, everybody is more likely to hear out a president in their first term. When in your second term, they kind of know your playbook. So that's where things get jammed up. Even when you have, Senate and Congress backing you, which he may or may not, depending on who you ask, it would be a major, major economic shift if they move to Huntsville, and not even just on an economic level, but from a defense side, that puts us 4 to 5 years behind what we're supposed to be doing already. And you could speak to that better than I could with your prior military experience.
I'm not familiar with the full space mission, but given how military command works in general, the Space Command oversees space operations as it relates to the United States globally.
Mm-hmm.
So for that headquarters to be here, there's a lot of expertise that is here and has been here. You mentioned that this is the second time that this has happened. Again, I've been here 2 years, so I didn't follow Colorado politics close enough to know that this has been proposed before. But if enacted, I immediately look at who's the House rep for Colorado Springs. And so then I go look at Jeff Crank and his response. And that is an opportunity, if there has never been one presented, for someone to challenge the convictions that have gotten him into office.
Most definitely. It's been a wild time just looking at, Air Force Academy. As you know, we have 5 military bases here. And seeing, I was really saddened when the Tuskegee Airmen had all their memorabilia pulled out of the Air Force Academy, and my grandfather was a Purple Heart, and he is not being represented anymore. With our recent trip to Atlanta, it was beautiful to be able to walk to all these different landmarks and Martin Luther King's church and the different museums and whatnot, and seeing Atlanta double and triple down on that type of history, whereas the rest of the United States is just kind of like, meh. We're trying to figure it out.
It was a series of things that happened when the administration first came in. So all our friends that are still in the Air Force are like senior people now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get the information on like the policy letters that go out. And there was a policy letter that went out earlier this year that was speaking about the rollback of a series of things. And the Tuskegee Airmen being pulled from not only the Air Force Academy, but basic training as well. When I got a wind of that, it's like, what are we talking? So I called my baby girl because I'm like, yo, what? My baby girl is in Florida. She had no idea who the Tuskegee Airmen were. I said,
wow. I feel like the only thing that gets me excited about all these changes that folks make is because it creates a counterculture. So, just like the 2053 or 2054 report that says that, the average, GDP of all Black people, the average net worth of Black people in that year will hit zero that year. Since that report has come out, we have Earn Your Leisure, we have the asset class, we have NG the mortgage guy, we have, Trap. We have all these different forces who have risen up and said, oh, you thought it was a game. Well, I guess we're going to win at it now. And I look at history the same way, where it falls into the hands of the parents and the community. And we have to be a community. It really does take a village to raise a child, because even if you are educated, disciplined, and a winner, you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. So that's why we got to stay interwoven and stay strong and tighten it like a fist so we can deliver a punch. So that
Bro.
stuff gets me excited. I'm like, oh, you want to pull it away? Oh, you're not going to teach it in public school? Cool. It'll be just like when I was growing up, and it wasn't taught in public school, but talking to my uncles, my grandfather, my dad's friends, I got so much game. So it's the same thing now.
Yeah, but it's a huge responsibility of being intentional about making sure that the history isn't lost. Because
Yeah.
the same way that all of this is going on, Cardi B is also in court. So when the attention span of our people has to compete between these dire political matters that impact generations of our lineage versus Cardi B being sued by somebody, it can become very difficult to make that distinction. For those of us that, there is no distinction, there's an inherent responsibility that comes along with not demeaning or stepping on one's excitement, but equally bringing awareness and attention to these things that have and are happening.
Yes. It sounds like we're going back into college for me, philosophy 101, and we're looking at the allegory of the caves. And we're looking at, Plato's example of, the hero who becomes enlightened because the people are living in this cave and they can see shadows of animals and trees and different things that exist in the real world. However, they've never left the cave. So they assume these shadows, he calls them mere phantoms, to be real things. Well, one of the guys escapes the cave, climbs out. His eyes has to adjust to the sunlight because he's never seen the sun. And then he sees a tree in 3 dimensions. He sees a squirrel. He sees a mountain lion. He sees the rivers that they heard. And then he goes back into the cave and he tries to tell everyone about it and pretty much tries to tell them how they're idiots. They were amazed by mere phantoms, and they killed him. So I think the big lesson we can always learn from, Plato or any time where we say the hometown philosopher is never welcomed is to meet people where they are and to do it from a mission base and from a love base. As long as we can keep our ego out of it, we're good. I always like to say ego is edging good out. So when it becomes all about us, there is no trust.
I love that. Edging good out. The Wendy Pines Foundation allocates funds towards nonprofits within the Colorado Springs community every year. It's one of my mission sets when it comes to engineering business, because when it comes to how we opened up this conversation, talking about the Space Command being moved, that's all federal funds that are our tax dollars that fund all of that. When it comes to paying taxes, we got options here. we can do what we've traditionally done and not understanding the financial positioning and the results that are being produced within our businesses, so that Uncle Sam can then take a bigger chunk in the form of taxes to then squander it on whatever that it chooses to squander it on. Or as business owners, we can identify the opportunities within our communities and the resources that support those causes and invest in those in the form of nonprofits, or becoming active on boards and having the ability to actually touch the people when it comes to that education piece of meeting them where they are and how they need to be addressed.
Most definitely. And like, you know, what you said is very important and very powerful. There is a gigantic tax write-off for giving to nonprofits. Up to 60% of your income pre-tax can be donated to qualifying nonprofits. So this is churches, this is your 501c1As, this is your 503c1As, and other entities as well, you know, private entities. And if we think about it this way, when I was studying macroeconomics in college, we would always say that a dollar for a company is a vote for that company. So in the same way, if you put an extra dollar of taxes to the government, you're voting for whoever is running the helm at that point in time, or whoever is controlling who's running the helm at that time, for all my conspiracy theorists or, you know, critical thinkers, whatever we're calling ourselves these days. So if we can put those dollars towards nonprofits where we know the people, we see the body of work, and we know that they're actually held accountable to do what they're supposed to do with the money, why wouldn't I put that money there? It just makes sense. I'm literally putting it in my own community, because a lot of times tax money doesn't make it into our community, like opportunity zones. You know, we have these big institutions like Wells Fargo, you know, the big four banks, who were found giving people of color these upside down crazy loans, where even if you had a 750 credit score, they gave you a variable rate mortgage that normally would only go to someone that would have a 530. And they did this for some years, and they did some other things. You know, I was one of the people that got paid out when they were opening accounts in my name and in my family's name, because as a family, we all bank together, open an account so they could create artificial money. And the government said, hey, you know what? You guys are going to pay some money eventually, but here's what we're going to do. People feel uncomfortable if you pay Black people directly, even though you hurt Black people directly, Black and brown, because Puerto Rican, Mexican, Cuban people were also lumped in many times just by the darkness of their skin, which is silly. It's silly, but they created the opportunity funds, you know, and there is some in California, there's some in Georgia, and it was made to indemnify people of color because they refused to indemnify directly the people that they hurt. And we look up now and we see most of these opportunity zones are 92% controlled by the white man. So it's crazy.
That speaks to access. We spoke heavily about access last week, and that continues to be a theme, where not being in the rooms to understand that these resources even exist or what the intent behind them are. When the narrative isn't managed, then it gets distorted. You pick a topic, and a narrative can take the intent of whatever it is that we're discussing and put it in a whole nother atmosphere from what the actual purpose of it was. So,
right. It's crazy how effective sensationalism and propaganda is. You could have the best argument in the world, Jesse. However, if I could find a narrative and I could be loud enough and I could get enough people emotional about it, most people are sitting on emotions anyways that they've been bottling up. because their career's not where they want it to be, their family life's not where they want it to be, their body, whole bunch of other things. All I have to do is reach out, elicit those emotions, and get you to pour those into my cause, and then we could beat Mr. Jesse down. Jesse wants to put food in kids' bellies, but like, we're gonna do this instead of taking care of our vets. And it's so crazy how, many of these media companies, because the entire world's media is controlled by 11 companies. That's scary in itself, where they normally put two different people against each other and both of them are cogs in the same system. There is absolutely no logical reason that someone that's making a medium to below income should be fighting with someone that's making that same income and vote against their own interests.
But a lot of that is going back to that same thing. When the narrative gets hijacked, then as opposed to addressing the root cause, it just becomes a finger pointing match. Addressing this from a societal perspective, the opportunity zones are an example within a much larger pool of problem, in the sense of there are no shortage of resources that are available, but bridging the gap in access so that those resources are in the right places is a part of why I felt that building this platform was so important when I first spoke with you about it, because narratives can always be hijacked. It was powerful in InvestFest to be in an auditorium of 14,000 people and Ian asked, if I made you money, give me a hell yeah. And the entire room shook with hell yes. Like, I grew up watching wrestling with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had to do a lot of things to elicit that type of hell yeah. And that is because he's been doing the work for so long and bringing so much value to so many people. The proof is in the results. So when I think about the community of classmates that will have the shared experience of taking their entrepreneurial ambitions and scaling it through all of the intentional frameworks that you and I have dedicated good portions of our lives to being nerds, to understanding the intimate components of how these things work. So as these conversations happen, the narrative remains consistent. Going into InvestFest, there was a lot of folks that were throwing shade.
Like they sure were. I don't know if they're going to have 10,000 people there. It's looking like guests are going to fall out. They're not going to have any billionaires there this year. Is it worth the InvestFest ticket? What's Charlemagne going to do? What's Charlemagne going to say? You know, they're running old news from Charlemagne talking about his affiliation with the Democratic Party, and absolutely nothing to do with the money that he gave away, the infrastructure that he made and described there, and how he's been empowering entrepreneurs. None of that. It's crazy. They got so little press. You know, Rashad and Ian talked about it yesterday, how they have an event, 25,000 people. Nothing happens. No one gets hurt. There's not one fight. There's none of that. There are thousands of people who made thousands of dollars there. Thousands. You know, you and I can't even count our return yet because the money's still coming from the connections that we've made, the business that we've drummed up there already. Just with some people seeing that I was there, I got messages saying, hey, I got $150,000. I want to see what you can do with it. I got 6 of those while we were there because I was in the proximity of greatness. You know, sometimes winning is just being in the right area. You definitely got to show up.
Access.
But I mean, Access.
Access.
That is the theme of today. Ice Cube was interviewed recently about the big three, and he has a pretty large lawsuit against the NBA and other leagues for, allegedly they were conspiring to keep him off of large networks so he couldn't grow his league. So that's going on. He's asked by several reporters some entrepreneurial questions, and and then they try to drop one on him. It was supposed to be like a light interview. And they're like, what is the greatest deterrent, detriment, or barrier for Black people in this day and age? Do they need reparations? Like, the guy tried to go in on Ice Cube. And Ice Cube just kind of sat back like, oh, this is what we're doing? Okay. His answer was access to capital. He said, that is the greatest barrier for my community. And they're like, what do you mean? You've made millions of dollars. You've done this, you've done this, you've done that. And he's like, I've done it all bootstrapped. When I talk to my counterparts in Hollywood and their cousins and their brothers, when they come up with an idea, they're easily given funding. And, VC is very different for Black enterprise than it is for non-Black. Whereas the numbers that we normally see in VC, which is venture capital, for you folks who are unaware, a Black-owned company has to show profits within the first 8 to 14 months of a new company, while their non-Black counterpart can get up to 52 months before showing any sort of profit. And they'll just let that thing grow and matriculate and sometimes masticize to society and bloom. So we have to move differently because we don't have 5 years to get the formula perfect. We might have 6 months and we got to punch and we got to go. So access, that is unintentionally, that's going to be the theme today.
Bro, it's going to consistently be a theme because that's a barrier that we have to penetrate on a bunch of different planes. Access across the board. But the access to capital piece, I got back from InvestFest on Monday, and on Thursday, I got the honor to present at our Black Chamber of Commerce, Cash and Culture, Access to Capital.
Yes, sir.
And it's because of that reason that we have a huge barrier to accessing capital. So when I think of cold brothers like Robert F. Smith that is doing it crazy on the venture capital side. Well,
and he's from here.
I know.
People never talk about that. That man is from the 719.
Yep.
And he's going crazy. Go ahead.
It just takes the intention. Mark my words. I'm big on the big declarations because when I declare it, I'm going to make it happen. And bridging that divide between what Robert F. Smith is doing at that level and the impact that can be happening at the grassroots level of small businesses that are fueling the communities, because it's all business. It's all numbers and human psychology. There's huge opportunity there. It just takes the intermediary piece that covers the legwork that makes it all make sense.
Yes, and yes. I think he's also a great example of conscious capitalism, because a lot of times people throw out the word capitalism like it's a living, breathing thing, like it's sentient, like it has a conscience. It's just a concept that we've adapted, and we can use it in a manner where we can be lawless, like in the 1920s, and there were 3 people that had more wealth than the entire country, including the government, where they're able to bail out the entire country. So you could do that and have hyper divides in wealth where people are literally worth, 3, 4, 5 billion. And at that same time, people are splitting cracker and ketchup sandwiches where they're going back and forth on who puts the extra half a cent per day to get by. So we can do that with free enterprise and capitalism, or we can work our behinds off. We can become experts. We can become just deadly, lethally skilled at what we do. We can turn our hustles into businesses. We can raise capital because all of our books are good. We got the right NAICS code, and the bank knows that we're a low risk investment. And then we can take that money and we can overflow it back into the community. Like, that brother paid off the college debt for an entire school. And this was not Pikes Peak Community College. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt per
That was
student.
Morehouse, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And I just wish that I had been, doing what I'm doing now at that point in time, because I would have called them and said, hey, I would love to throw a tax plan together pro bono for every single student there, because I know the IRS is going to try to get them on gift tax.
So check it out, bro. These types of conversations are the framework to those types of relationships happening. Me personally, and just sitting back and observing, Troy and Rashad, literally, Troy mentioned it last night on Market Mondays. When he finished teaching, I think he was at like 120 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which he was getting it as a teacher. You know what I mean? Because like teachers don't be really getting paid like that. So but
anywhere but New York, that's getting it.
True. Cost of living and all that. I got it. And Rashad did financial advisory for them brothers to interview Robert F. Smith and like have him in their phone. And the same thing with Don.
The real estate mogul.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. But
man, that's one cool brother there.
Yeah.
Don Peebles.
Yeah. Don Peebles. And the cool part is I was thinking Don Peebles, but I didn't want to say that because I felt I was mixing them with Mario Van Peebles. So I just did. But yeah, Don Peebles. Sitting across with Don Peebles, these are real business minds, titans, all in the course of 5 years or so. Again, these types of conversations end up being the pathway to having those types of conversations that you couldn't have even imagined being had. Because how many people that look like you and I are having these types of conversations?
Not enough. And that's why they better get their ass to class, because we're going to change that. It's so interesting, like, in my industry, so financial services and tax services, which is it's his own little branch of financial services. I can't tell you how many run-of-the-mill people there are that are making either multiple 6 figures or 7 figures, some even 8 figures a year. They're just very average people. It's just the conversation was different when they started out. So, they start off with their job, they have a regular job, and someone said, hey, what are you going to do when you retire? And they're like, oh, I'm hoping, live off my 401k, because pensions aren't a thing anymore. They're like, yeah, they're not. Well, let's do the math real quick and figure out what that's going to be like. Let's assume some promotions every 5 years. Let's assume a moderate inflation rate, which is 3.5%, even though right now inflation might be 18%. It's absurd. They're like, well, you should start building something that has intrinsic value so you can sell that later, and that can be your exit. Oh, like what? Well, you can do financial services. You build a book of business on the side, sell it for a 20-year advance. Okay. And then they start doing it part-time while they're doing whatever else they're doing, whether that's plumbing, HVAC, like people all walks. We have a girl on our team who was a bartender at Applebee's. Her name's Megan. Megan has not made less than $1 million each year the last 3 years in a row. And it's really just the conversation that someone had with her when she was a bartender at Applebee's that let her transform herself into a financial professional with a firm. And we can do the same thing with our community and let people know, like, hey, did you know you can create verticals? So that means you take one client with
Ain't
your
no
one
can,
company.
my brother. It's will.
A is will and done correctly. I could throw that piece to you. Do you mind going in on verticals? What are verticals in a business, and why should I aspire to have that?
So to be vertically integrated, when we start talking about SWOT analysis, I take my clients through pest analysis as well, where we're planning for the external factors such as political, economic, social, and technological. And planning for all of the SWOT and pest analysis factors that impacts the growth and sustainability of a business. Being vertically integrated creates a certain level of protection where you insulate yourself from outside forces. So for example, one of my clients does dog grooming, and that is going to expand into being a distributor of the supplies that it takes to groom animals.
Mm-hmm.
By operating in that capacity, it insulates her business from a challenge that folks in her industry have to balance in the business.
Right.
Not just grooming the dogs, but taking a look on the side of it and saying, oh, well, without this is directly impacted. So let me go ahead and hop into that one as well.
So would you say that a vertical is a similar product or service that you can offer that's somewhat related to your primary business? So we can give them just like a basic definition.
I mean, it can get, but for me, it boils down to the intentionality, because when I think about the verticals that I'll have in the future, they can be looked at as being completely independent of one another, but the way that they process here and here, they're all interwoven. So I think to that effect, it just depends on the intentionality of the entrepreneur.
Sure. Well, I just asked that because a lot of these viewers, they're trying to get their stuff together. And
Right.
you are so sharp. You're like SWOT analysis, pest analysis, TPS report. And I don't want them to get lost in the acronyms and initialisms to lose the message.
No, I got you. That's the beauty of being a part of the community of classmates. This process, this ain't just a soundbite. This is a community. This is an invitation to said community. So if the things that we're talking about resonate, then you found yourself a home. And we commune on these types of things offline to greater detail.
So what you're saying is the students have homework. When they don't know a word, they need to look it up, and they need to reach out, and they need to learn why you use that phrase and how it's important to their business. That's what it sounds like you're saying. So,
Yeah,
and I'm totally with that. I'm a big proponent of using, it's called the plain language movement, where I'm not using overly elevated words for no reason to try to make myself sound smart. Right. We are smart.
Right.
That's different. But there's a time and place where you have to use particular jargon to describe one thing. Like one thing, I'm sure it's a million sound bites of me saying the word arbitrage, because it is one of the most important things you can understand with making wealth. Now, people try to use different words to dumb it down. Just teach people what arbitrage means, which arbitrage to me means we have two different things, whether it's a loan or another asset, and we are placing leverage against that asset or against that debt, and we're using that money in a way to make more money. To keep it simple, if there is a 5% interest rate on a loan that you qualify for, and you know that you could go out there and make 15% with it, would you do that? Would you take that deal? I would take that deal all day, every day, and 5 times on Sunday, you
Right.
know? And then I'm going to go and make that money. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And then I'm going to pay that loan back. I'm going to give them their 5%, keep my 10. That's arbitrage. That's all it is. So it's not
Okay.
complex, but it is particular
Right.
when we're
Right.
talking about building wealth here.
Right.
So,
And yeah, no, I think that a lot of the things that we're talking about that we will talk about are all very high level concepts and practices. It's not going to be possible for us to drill down to the degree of linear detail to reach each individual, which is why I truly view each of these conversations as an invitation to a broader discussion in whatever format that makes sense. We'll have our online community, and how that manifests as far as really getting down into some of the granular details of these high level things that we're discussing, that's going to be tailored to our community.
most definitely, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And I love that today's asset was access, because there's a lot of folks who call themselves experts on money, business, and whatnot that they would never list that in a million years. And we could start at A. And they would never list that.
Yeah.
So here we are. And I do love, just how we open this thing. We're talking about competing for somebody's mind power, for their attention. I had a teacher that would always say, if you pay attention, it pays dividends. And when we talk about the Cardi B thing, my mind went straight into Muse and Amusement. And if anybody's been around me for long enough, I probably say this once a week. So basically, a muse is something that is aspirational and inspirational. And it's going to charge you up to go be a better you, to go do what you need to go do what you aspire to do. A lot of times a muse is a beautiful woman. It doesn't have to be a beautiful woman. It can be anything. A lot of people look at Michael Jordan as their muse, like, man, I want to be great all the way around. Well, the funny thing about language is that it has patterns and it has a process. And when we put the word a in front of something, it makes it mean the opposite. So if something is typical, we put a in front of it, it's atypical. Now it's out of the norm. If something's normal, abnormal, we have this process. So if we put the A in front of muse, which muse pretty much means to really dig in and find your path to greatness, enlightenment, critical thinking, and creation, what is amusement? It's like, my goodness. The first time someone said that to me, I had a flat forehead moment. I was sitting there stuck for
That's
10 minutes.
That's
I'm
brilliant.
like, my goodness. So you mean entertainment, for the most part, is our greatest oppression to being great? It's our greatest adversary? Or is it because it brings out the worst of us, where we can sit on our butt for hours and hours and feel like we did something?
Yeah, I know it's kicking our asses as a collective. I do know that. What wakes people up are results. I was talking with a sister that's doing some amazing things here in the community, and she was allowing for the small voices. Because, when we walk into rooms, people will do to you what you allow them to do to you. And
yes,
and folks will often test in microaggression or passive aggressive ways. And, you just kind of got to check those things so that they know, yeah, nah, this ain't it. Well, on this particular day, she had allowed that shit to get up under, and I'm like, you way bigger than that, queen, because the work is bigger than any of the low energy, low vibrational things that these other people are engaging in. When you are processing all of that and allowing it to get into your energy and into your vibe, you know, you allowing these folks to pull you down up off of your perch.
Unless Jesse's there to remind them of their power.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't get pulled from your perch into their squalor. That ain't how that works.
And it can be tiresome to know that you are your brand at all times. And we've talked about this, and that, you know, I'm fun and outgoing, but I definitely got to check people. I'm love, light, and, you know, something nice, but if it gets crazy, I can throw this right. And I think, you know, self-discipline is accountability and love for myself in action.
Right.
But checking these people and training them how to treat me is also from a place of love.
It's hugely critical, man. Like I learned that early in my career. It's not even something that I consciously do anymore. Like it's how I carry myself. That because people try little things and I don't let nothing slide. I'm not that. I come from the school of Cedric the Entertainer. Like we don't hope. Sometimes you just wish.
That's a different energy that a lot of people, you know, it's going to show them who they really are, not who they think they are. Because when you look in somebody like you take up a lot of space. Like, I know I'm a large person. I'm a loud person. So I know I take up space, but you take up space intentionally and show people that you're comfortable, you're good. The way that you're looking in their eyes and you're talking with intense passion, while at the same time, you're being meticulous with your wording and your delivery. They're not ready for that. They're going to try to talk over it, and you're going to be like, let me finish my thought. And you're going to go back to what you're saying. They're, it's like they got jabbed right in the nose. Like, okay. But it's beautiful, and we need to show people that by doing that, you're going to have more success. You know, when I bring on someone new onto my financial team, I tell them the basics. I tell them all the horrible stuff they're going to go through. I'm like, look, if you're dialing these leads, somebody's going to curse you out. You know, some old lady is going to blow you up because she's having a bad day. Are you the type of person that can handle that? Or are you the type of person that crumbles? When adversity happens, do you like to be left alone, or do you want me to call you? And we're going through the whole process. And then we get to a point where I tell them what they can hold me accountable for. I'm like, look, I'm your guide. If you need resources, you need answers, I got you. You need direction, you need seniority. You're sitting down with someone. Right before this, I had one of my brokers call me, and he found out that one of his folks in his circle has $2 million sitting in a checking account because he's too afraid to lose his money. He didn't want to invest in the wrong thing. Will you talk to this guy for me? I would love to. Short talk, and it's going to turn into some business. But flipping the script, what I tell them I hold them accountable for is to be impeccable with their word. There is no complaining. You have to honor my time, and you have to be a pleasure to work with, because I don't have to work with you. And that's not something that most people are used to hearing. And they're like, but you went out, you found me, and you told me to, yes, but this is how it's going to go. And I'm letting you know from day one. Because if you don't honor my time, I'm not going to work with you. If you're not doing the things that I lay out for you to do, for you to be successful, I can't want it more than you do. That's insane. You're telling me you're more loyal to anything and everything but your family's last name? We're not aligned. I'm sorry. But there's a whole bunch of other people that'll take you. Call these guys. They'll work with you. They won't hold you accountable to anything, but they also probably won't help you become great. Bro, so what do you want to do? What do you really want?
It took me going through my client retention analysis. A high percentage of the turnover came from the clients that every week had an excuse as to why they couldn't do something. So my process is designed now in a way where it doesn't allow for that. If we're not in concrete plans in place in order to tick things off of the list to make systematic progress towards the goals and objectives that we have agreed to, I may not be the right fit for you. And that's okay. I'll be good, goddamn, if I'm going to allow my brand to be tarnished, because that's ultimately what it's going to lead to. I can't force you to be great, but I can give you everything that you need to do it. But if you don't do the things, you're not going to come back in 2 years and say, Bullseye Consulting took all of my money and delivered me. Nope, we ain't doing that.
No, sir. I look at it the exact same way with these clients. They'll ask me for the moon and the stars. I'm like, oh, I saw this thing on TikTok, and I heard you could do this with this, and I get a trust. After I get the trust, then I get the money from the bank. Then I can run it back, and I can make $2 million in a year. It's like, well, if it was that simple, why didn't you do it already? Crickets. Well, I don't know. If it was that simple, don't you think more people would do it? Wouldn't someone charge you $50, $75, $100,000 if they could guarantee you $2 million in 2 years? We would take that bet, right? It's like, so it's not that simple. There are some of these things in here that you learned in that video that are real things, but you have to be the right person to have them. A lot of people get excited about infinite banking and they want to do it. And I'm like, okay, show me your current savings account. Why? You want to do infinite banking and you don't have money to bank with. Right. I'm not going to write that asset for you so it can charge back. And then, you're running around town like, Earl set me up in this thing and it didn't work. And my pastor told me it wouldn't work. Absolutely not. You want to do infinite banking? I need 6 months to a year's money to do that for you, to create it. And I'll go out and I'll get the best carriers. I'll design it so it's the lowest cost for you. So your cash on cash is crazy. I got plenty of clients this year where we locked in about 10% in gains for the whole year in the very first month of their portfolio. Like you say, I really do this. We're doing this to give back because I really do this. I really run this business. You really run your business. But they got to earn it.
Bro, yes.